is the class we have created. So if you want to see the existing classes, whatever you have created, you can go to the file menu and click on open resource or open whatever it is, type your class name. Okay? Get the class name. Or else what you can do is you can click on shift control O. That also will open the open resource menu. From there you can open whatever the Apex class or Visual Force page or lightning component. So this can be opened here, even Apex triggers, everything. Okay. Now let me create a new class. Explain first. So we have already seen the instance variables. Instance variables means variables which are declared inside the class. These are called as instance variables. So instance variable syntax will always be like data type. First one, access modifier. I have already explained, I hope. Data type and variable name. Okay. Even here you can give equals to default value also. Like this now, or you can directly give like this. So this is how you can declare the instance variables. How can we access the instance variables? Instance variables. Instance variables. Okay. Or instance variables, or you can say that object level variables also. Instance variables declared inside the class. This is one important. Inside the class. Okay. If you want to access the instance variables outside the class, then you should have object. Instance variables can be accessed with object. Okay. How to create an object? Class name, syntax. This is one we have already told. Is equals to class. Then this is the object j dot instance value. These are all called as syntax. Syntax means there will be no change. This same way you have to by heart and you have to write the code. Okay, class name, object name equals to make keyword, then class name. Same syntax. You have to by heart it. I don't have any other way. Okay, this is not a logic. This is just a syntax. And then object dot instance variable. So whatever the variables you have declared inside the class, those variables can be accessed outside the class using the object. And that too if those variables are public. Right? If they are private, you cannot access them. Right? Only public variables can be accessed outside the class using the object only. Okay, the same way you have methods. Okay, so let me explain the these are instance variables, right? We have static variables as well. Be careful, there will be small difference between the static variables and instance variables. Okay, instance variables are declared using the syntax like access modifier, data type, variable name. Okay, but static variables will be declared. Let me give the syntax. So this is very much important than static variables. static variables. Okay. Static variables are also called as class variables. Okay. Once per class. Okay. Means the syntax of the see these variables are also declared inside the class only. Syntax of the static variables like this one access modifier. Okay. Static keyword, then same remaining data type, variable name, or you can give default value. Okay. Equals default value. You can give like this as well. Example, public static integer salary. Still, okay. Only the difference is you can have a keyword called static. That's it. Between the access modifier and data type, you will have static keyword, then that will be called as the static variable. Right? How to access the static variable? This is syntax. Example, access. How to access that? So you want to access the static variable outside the class, then you have to give class name dot variable name. See, you need to remember the syntax. If you remember the syntax, then you will be able to write the code. Otherwise, you cannot. Okay. Class name dot variable. That's it. Okay. So this is how you can access the static variables. What is a static variable? Static variables are class level variables which can be accessed only through the class. Okay. If you want to access inside the class, you can directly use that. You don't need to call any object or any class name. Any doubts on these static variables? So let's see. I'm going to use public static salary. Example, I'm giving something public static data type. Okay. This is how I have to declare. See, there is no difference, only the static keyword between the data type and public. That's called as static variable. Then, what is the different way of accessing the static variable? See, usually if you want to access instance variables, means if a variable does not have the static keyword, then it's called instance variable. Instance variable means you have to access through the instance. Instance is nothing but object. As I'm saying that if you are having instance variables can be accessed through the object only. How to create an object? So always create an object like class name, then a space variable name, then new keyword, again the class name, brackets. Okay. Now here you can access system dot debug of name, say is e dot is, because this is the instance variables. Instance variables can always be accessed through the object only. Okay. Then how to access the static variables? Static variables can always be accessed only through the class. You can directly access through the class without object. P person dot salary and directly access through the class name. So what happens if you give like P? If you access using the object, what happens? It throws the error. Try this. See this? Static fields cannot be referenced from a non-static content. Means through the object you cannot access the static variables. Have to
In
use
Java, it will work, but in Java, it will work, Kanji. It will work.
outside the class also. Will it work?
Yeah, it will work.
How can
Outside
you
the class.
access?
No. Outside the class, it is not. Inside the
That's
class, it will
what
work.
man. See,
Yeah, okay.
inside the class you can access all static variables, instance variables also. But outside the class, how can you access?
Inside the class, it won't work.
That's what. So outside the class, if you want to access, then you should use class name, right?
Yes.
Right. Yep. Any questions on this one?
Sir, we are simply using inside the class when we execute it, sir. Can you show that?
Inside. What is that?
We can declare the variables inside the class. We can execute, sir. Can you show that how we executed?
Inside the class, I'll explain. It's not come yet to this spot. I'll explain.
Sir, in case of local variable, we cannot able to access in outside the class. How it can be executed?
How can it be?
Executed, sir. Local
Eh,
variable, it doesn't use any object.
Without, see, local variable. These are all local variables. If you don't give any access modifier, if you are using inside the block, those are called local variables. Instance variables means which are declared inside the class. Okay. See here, person P equals to new person. So this P is also one local variable. That's also variable. But as we are using for object, we are calling it as the object. That's it. Okay, so be careful. So don't get confused. Just now, just try to learn what is local variable, what is instance variable, what is static variable. Any questions on this? Okay, just a minute. Kruti, pause the video. Pause the record. Any questions on this, guys? Methods. Okay, so we have seen that. I have already explained you that inside the class you will be having variables, constructors, methods, right? Remember, in a class we will be having variables, methods, and constructors. Okay, now we have seen the variables. Variables are three types: local variables, instance variables, static variables. Okay, then methods. A method is a function, okay, or a work which can be performed on a specific task. Method is a group of statements which perform a specific task. Okay, a method is a group of statements which perform a specific task. There are again two types of methods. One is instance methods Second one, static methods. Okay. Instance methods, static methods. Be careful. If I ask you what are the things, then you should answer the questions. Okay. So there are two types of methods: instance methods, static methods. Okay. First, instance methods. Instance methods or also the methods which can access through the object. If I say that instance, without object you cannot access it. Instance method, object is required. Instance means object is required. Object, then dot. After that only you can access whether it is a variable or it is a method. Okay. If I say that static, static means class name. That's it. Class name dot. If it is variable, variable. If it is method, method name. Okay. Be careful. You should be very, very, very careful to understand that. Okay. Instance methods can be accessed only to the object. Syntax. Okay. Be careful. So syntax, you should learn this first. Okay. Access modifier. Okay. Return data type, or let's say return type. Return type says return type. Method name. Then parameters. Param 1, 2, so on. Yeah. Then rocket starts is here. Then this is statements. Group of statements. Okay. Say this. Be careful. Access modifier. Access modifier. Return type. Method name. Okay. Here, one new thing is return type. Okay. Return type should be any data type. It may be the integer, it may be the string, or it may be the double or date, whatever it is. Okay. But even if you don't want to return anything, you can keep it void as. Okay. Example for this. Public void. We can say this run. So these parameters are optional. So parameters are optional. If you want to give the parameters, you can give directly give like this one. System dot debug of run. Okay. The syntax of the instance method is access modifier, return type, then method name. Parameters are optional. If you want to give parameters, you can give. I'll let you know what is parameter. Don't get confused. Okay. So this is one example. Any questions or any confusion on this one? Let me know. Kriti, are you clear?
Yes, Sanjeev.
Kriti,
Yes,
Sujit, Lokesh. Okay. Sujit there. Okay, so note down this. Pause the recording video. So how to access instance methods? I have already told you that object name dot method name. Okay, to use object dot method name. Okay, how to access those instance methods? How to declare? those instance methods. Giving called calculation. Okay, I'm going to perform subtraction or multiplication of two numbers. Okay, what I'm going to do is integer, right, integer a. Okay, I'm giving integer a and integer b. You can declare like this, instance variables. Okay, what I'm trying to do is, as I have already explained, what is the syntax? Access modifier, then return type, method name. Okay, if you don't want to give any return, you can give it as public void add, giving. So here, access modifier, return type, method name. Then I'm not giving any parameters. Access like this. Okay, so this, as this is the class, right? These are instance variables. These variables can be accessed inside the instance methods. You don't need to worry, because this class is, see, what a class is starting at line number 1, ending at line number 8, right? These are all the instance variables, and that too, those are in the inside the class. So if you want to access the instance variables outside the class, like execute anonymous, you have to create the object, then object dot variable name you have to write. But if you want to access inside the class, you don't need to write anything. You don't need to create object. System dot debug. Let's say I will do this. Integer then sum equals to a plus b. Add result. Okay, I'm writing like this. Let's say public void subtraction. Subtraction. Like this, you can have multiplication and others also. Okay, now let's go ahead and execute the code. As these are the instance variables and instance methods, right? You should create object first, right? As these are the instance variables, first create the object. How to create the object? Class name equals to new class name. Okay, now you have to set values to a b, right? C dot a equals to, let's say, 50. C dot b equals to, say, 30. Okay, you know that through the instance variables, if you want to access the instance variables outside the class, see, there is a difference. Understand that first. Here also we have a b. Inside the class, we are not using object name. Outside the class, we are using the object name. Don't need to write the object inside the class, but you have to write the object. You have to create an object outside the class to access the instance variables or instance methods also. Okay, now for your understanding, right, public deploy not work into B. Okay, I'm explaining you guys you want to access the instance methods inside the class, you don't need to create any object. Want to access the instance variables also, you don't need to write or you don't need to create any object. So here, let me call multiply. I'm calling one instance method from another instance method. Say this, there will be no error also. Okay, now when you call, let's say, through the object only, you can call the instance methods, right? C dot add, giving C dot add. Now what happens? When the object is created, we are setting the values 50, 30 to the A and B. Okay. Now we are performing add. Now what happens is it will come to here and it takes the value of A and B, like 50 and 30. 80 will be printed here. Right? Logic. Just think through the logic. This is C dot subtraction. Now what happens? When you call C dot subtraction, it will come here and takes the value of A and B, 50 minus 30. So 20 will be printed here. Immediately this line will be executed. Means this method will be called here and that here multiplication A star B and A into B. That means so A into B will be 50 into 30, 1500 to be printed. Even if you're not calling multiplication, but this is called inside the subtraction. This subtraction we are calling here. Okay, execute this. See this 80, 20, 1500. Right? So this is how the instance variables and instance methods can be called from the class, I mean from outside the class. Any questions on this, guys? Any confusion on this? This is the methods without returning anything. Why we are keeping void? Void is a keyword which means this method is returning nothing. It's not returning anything. Okay, so just write on this. Pause the video, resume the video. I'll explain the other. Now, so let's see how to get the return type. Now, what you guys are doing, you are just trying to print the values here only, right? Instead of printing here, what I need to do is I need to get the result here. Okay, for that, do is you can give the return type here instead of void. Please, if you give anything other than void as the return type, when you save it, it will throw the error if you don't give the return statement. Series problems. Missing return statement required. Return type integer. If you give void, it won't ask for the return. But if you give this series, what you're trying to do, return of what you need to do is A plus B, right? Again, subtraction. Return. This is the keyword. Return is a keyword. Keyword means the syntax is same. You have to by hand it. That's what this syntax. Okay. Then multiply return of A store B. Okay. If you give other than void, the return statement should be there. And that too, return statement should be the last statement. Means before in the bracket, that return statement should be there. Okay. Now here, integer. See, return type, returning means it is giving the result. When it is giving the result, you have to store the result somewhere. So whatever the return type is there, the same return type it returns here. As it is returning number, addition of two numbers, then here also addition of two numbers will be the number only, right? Like integer, subtraction, integer. Okay. Now here you can system dot debug of sum is some subtraction